Coast to the West Coast. City to city, coast to coast.
Yerski. Hey, yo, what time it is? It's the most stay-pomest man out there, the most flyest man out there. Hey, yo, stop the cap. I'm gonna cap on myself. I know I ain't fly, but I do what I gotta do. Anyway, you know what time it is. Stop the Cap podcast return each and every Friday. New time, 8, like 9-ish type of vibe. This segment that we're doing right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's called literally and truthfully the after effects of pulling the trigger. Reason why we're talking about this because we're doing a campaign called exclamation SSS. For those who don't know, it's Stop Soldier Suicide. Because right now, from the 16th to the 24th, that's the campaign that we're doing across the world, across the board. Shout out to all the people that's doing it well. I saw some people that basically had their sub goals and revenue already out there, moving, clicking, vibing, doing what they got to do. So big shout out to everybody on that. Nah, I mean, me, I'm doing it differently as the most mixiest man on Twitch and as DJ Fly Hype. I'm doing it a different road. Instead of gaming for 30 days, we're gonna switch it up. We're gonna talk, we're gonna game, but I need to have this conversation right now because a lot of people don't understand what goes behind the scenes with special forces, Microsoft, SEAL teams. The list goes on. The list goes on, right? And we need to really understand the effects of even on law enforcement, our FBI agents. Know what I mean? Like the after effects of pulling the trigger. So right now with me, I have a good friend of a family friend. Now, shout out to Mrs. Mixie, Mama Mixie. You know what I mean? Straight up, she helped me out on this scenario. Brother Brother Dover, he's a retired tech sergeant in the United States Air Force Service. Especially shout out to him. Thank you for stopping by. Have your time, brother. Know what I mean? Appreciate it. Now, I'm gonna let you talk about yourself real quick. Let the world get familiarized with you, your service background, what you did, and what you're currently doing before we jump into the topic at hand of the after effects of pulling the trigger.
Sure. Well, like you said, I'm retired from the Air Force. I retired back in 2011. I was a tech sergeant. I joined back in 1991 at the tail end of Desert Storm. I was in for Somalia and all of that fun. I was in special operations doing aircraft maintenance for Operation Joint Guard. That was the Bosnia mission. And then all the way through Iraqi freedom, Afghani freedom, I deployed to Iraq twice and finally had enough, did my 20 years, and like I said, retired in 2011. Since then, I went to college and quickly realized that my mission was I needed to help veterans. I went through some things myself and understood there's a need out there that ain't being filled. So I got a degree in human services with a minor in psychology. And the road took me to an organization called Volunteers of America, one of the oldest volunteer organizations out there in the United States. Been going on for 125 years. And I'm currently employed as a moral injury specialist.
Okay. Now, hold on one second. Before we dabble in with that, ladies and gentlemen, this man's background has stripes, medals, bells, accommodations. Good lord, you seen it all from Desert Storm to the end of Iraq. I have to ask you, as a vet, which tour you dislike the most? And I'm asking all my vets that.
It's kind of hard to quantify that answer because being in the military, you're into the mission. You're there for your brothers and your sisters. We don't play the politics. We don't get into national reasons on why we go here, why we go there. At the end of the day, when you're over there for the people you're with. That's your main focus. So, I mean, there was a lot to like about what I did, where I went everything. There was a lot to dislike. You know, it's just the nature of that game. It's a war. Things
Okay.
happen. So I can't really say that I disliked any particular thing. There was good and bad in all of it, but I'm proud of what I did. I'm proud of what we did.
Right. Right. Okay. My next question. I know you're probably going to go with your branch, but out of all the branches, who is the most, I would say, interesting bunch to work with?
Oh boy. That's a tough one because I was actually attached to the Army for several years of my career. I was attached to the 82nd Airborne Division. I was
That's
attached to a Stryker Brigade up in Alaska. I worked with some SEALs on one TDY. Those are some crazy people. Oh my god!
And
No,
don't get them knuckle seal head from Bob Beach. Let me stop.
I'm not going to go into those stories because then they'll shut your podcast down. I don't want to do that to you.
Do that to myself. I already know. Trust me. Trust me. You had met Mama Mixie, so majority of my family's military. So trust me. I hear the story.
Oh yeah. The branches will talk trash just because that's what we do. But at the end of the day, they all got each other's back.
Yeah.
I can laugh at all of them, and I love every one of them to death. They each do what they do, and they're the best in the world at it. So I got love for all branches. No doubt.
What's up. All right, so fast forward. You're serving in Somalia now. For those who don't know, my generation, because we was young, you know what I mean. Can you explain a little bit of Somalia? Because I was born in '92, so I really wasn't really do my research a little bit when you did give me a little thing. And yes, I did have to watch Black Hawk Down a little bit to understand a little bit what's going on. Even though that's a fictional movie, it still gave me a little insight of how crazy war was back then compared to the evolution that we are stepping into today.
Well, the thing with Somalia is it wasn't actually a war because Somalia didn't have an army. It was a bunch of local warlords, and they were all fighting for turf. It was a control thing. Now, I didn't actually deploy into Somalia. I was part of the airlift operation. I was stationed at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. We had C-5s. That's the largest cargo aircraft in the United States. And we were working 12, 16-hour days for, I think that was about 9 months. We were just 7 days a week, hard at it. We'd load them up as fast as they come in and kick them out. It was a lot of work, but that was just some crazy time.
Now, about Iraq, your last deployment. Oh, what did you do there, if you don't mind me asking?
No, not at all. I was deployed with an EOD unit. That's explosive ordnance disposal.
Yeah, I heard about those guys.
Those are the people that go out and disarm bombs. On that deployment, we actually lost 5 people in the last month I was there. Iraq, I would describe as 98% sheer boredom and 2% absolute terror.
But it's that 2% terror that gives you the nightmares at the end of the day.
That's what chews on you. Absolutely.
All right. So what made you become a moral, well, I call it a moral officer. How I found out what you did was when Mama Mixie was telling me this, I was kind of playing a game. I was low-key playing a game called Ready or Not. Shout out to Universal Energy 5 and shout out to LAPD for actually allowing that game to actually be published. You know what I mean? Because I know that's tactics and stuff and breaching and stuff. I was reading upon a moral officer, and I got into it, and it was really interesting how you really sit there and talk to your buddies after the end of it. So I'm gonna let you go into it, explain it what you did from the military aspect compared to the civilian cop aspect that I read. It's 2 different aspects to it.
Well, to be fair, as a moral injury specialist, I wouldn't differentiate between military and law enforcement experience.
Okay. I recant that.
During the interview I actually did for this position, we talked about the Uvalde school shooting, where
Okay.
the police got called in. They waited. They were doing what they thought they needed to do at the time, and then at the end of the day, they found out waiting around that cost a lot. Those cops got to live with that. Now, I'll explain what moral injury is a little bit, just to clarify what we're looking at.
Okay.
Everybody knows about PTSD. Well,
Right.
PTSD is a physical, psychological fear reaction to experiences. It's the fight or flight aspect of your mind that's kicking in. Moral injury is the emotional, spiritual effects of those happenings. So if you think about being a police officer, getting called out to Uvalde, and you get told to wait, stand down, don't go in, and then you understand that if y'all had gone in, things would have been different. You gotta live with that decision, and that's going to tear you up. So what I do as a moral injury specialist, I seek out veterans that had experiences, aren't coping with them well, and we have support groups that they can participate in to kind of discuss what their experiences were, what they're feeling, and how to cope with those.
Okay. So how many cases do you get daily?
Well, it's not really a daily thing. I cover it. I don't know how many square miles, but if you look at a map of South Dakota, split it down the center, and I got the western half of the state. So
wow.
I'm covering a lot of ground out here.
Okay. Well, $1 million question is, what made you go into this line of work? What was the trigger for it?
Well, that's a fun story. I was sitting in a math class. I decided I wanted to go back to college. I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
I hate math.
Math, not even once, I promise.
No, I know, right?
But behind me, there's a young lady, and she's obviously stressing out. She's in tears. She's crying. She's talking to her friend next to her. She's married to an airman out here at Ellsworth Air Force Base, and her brother was in the hospital. And young couple, didn't have a lot of money. She didn't know how she was going to get back to Germany because she was from Germany.
Okay.
So I heard what was going on, and I just kind of turned around and inserted myself in the conversation. I was like, look, you got some options. You can call the Red Cross and let them know what's going on, and the Red Cross can help her get back. They'll talk to the military. They're eligible for this program and that program. They can fly what we call space available missions, where there's some room on an airplane going that way, and you can get on, and it's all free for military members. And I'm just running through this list of options that she had that wouldn't cost her anything. And the end of it, we had her a plan on how to get back to Germany by the next day. And I figured out that was fun. I was having a good time helping somebody out in crisis. So I changed my major the next day. I wanted to do something where I could be hands-on helping people with problems.
Okay.
I started volunteering for this program as a peer group facilitator a year ago, just leading a peer group, and this position opened up. My boss started bugging me that I should, come out of retirement and, work for him. And it took him about 3 months to convince me to quit taking naps and get a job. But
I mean, gotta love that. That man saying, I'm gonna bother you every single day until you take this offer. Gotta love that.
He was pretty persistent. I'll give him credit for that one. But I got to say, it's one of the best decisions I've made in my life, because I've been doing this job now since November, and I've learned a lot about me and what I've been through. And I've had people in my office in tears, just talking about the possibilities of this program and what it could do. I've heard testimony about how this program's changed their lives, turned it around, taken them off the street. Moral injury kind of shares a lot of after effects with PTSD. You can't deal with the guilt or the shame of what you did. So you start just trying to put it out of your mind, but it keeps coming back. So then you start trying the alcohol, try to drown it out. Then you try the drugs to numb it. And pretty soon you go down that path where you can't see any more light. You can't see a way out. And a lot of veterans wind up in suicide, just another number. And this program can save lives.
Because I was going, I think she said numbers. I was going through the numbers, and the numbers is crazy. Like a 4% increase since 2022 in suicide deaths, like from vets. It's like it's very doggy dog, I'm wondering, like, me as a civilian, it's like you guys go overseas, have hot lead spilled at you in 100-degree weather, or bombs thrown at you in 100-degree weather, stuff like that, and it's like when you come home, it's like y'all still fighting the war. It's like it makes me wonder, like, is the VA really doing something, or are they just collecting a check?
Well, first off, I look forward to 100-degree weather. When I got off the plane in Kuwait, it was 135.
Oh, damn.
that heat over there ain't no joke. I worked for the VA for a couple of years, and they're doing their best. Well, they're doing their best with what they got. The problem is, and I'll tell you this, if you didn't realize it, the numbers that the VA report are low because not all veterans go to the VA. A lot of veterans, especially our Vietnam veterans, they feel like the government betrayed them. They lied. And the VA is just another entity in the government. So why would I trust what they're going to tell me? And then you hear a lot of the rumor mill and the stories going around about vets dying on wait lists. And I know some veterans that have been prescribed the wrong meds, or, just swept under the rug. They just give them pills and forget about them. There's all kinds of stories you'll hear. So a lot of veterans don't go to the VA. And when they take their life, they don't get reported in those numbers. So everybody's heard of like Mission 22 a day, all that. I've seen estimates as high as 40 in reality. So
to be honest with you, I will say this. When I was doing my research and all this, my hypothesis was going off the radar, and it was telling me it sounds like it's higher than this. It really sounds like it's a very higher statute of what they're saying, and they're just watering it down to not to endanger the public, and let people know, like, this is what happened when you go to war. This is the aftermath. Like,
well, I mean, I don't believe that they're watering numbers down or trying to hide anything necessarily. They can only work with what they got. You don't know what you don't know. So, they're gonna report honestly, because if they don't report honestly, then they can't change any. And I will say, in their defense, the VA has a lot of good people.
That's true.
It's now the problem is those good people are down in the weeds. They're the working people. When you start talking about politics and politicians and policy and bureaucracy and all of that, that's where things get lost in the weeds. And it is what it is. But the VA has a lot of good people trying.
Okay.
But, there's still these veterans out here that need help. And that's where people like me come in. People like you. We're all out here and we're all trying to make a difference. We want to put a dent in that number, and that's what matters.
If you have anything to say, I'm jumbling around right now because my brain is elsewhere. I do apologize for that. If you had an opportunity, if you had an opportunity to help more, which state would you attempt to start in besides South Dakota? Like, where would you go next? That's the $1 million question I'm trying to say.
Wow. Everywhere. There's veterans everywhere you turn around. Every little town, every dog walk, every big city, every street corner, you're going to find a veteran. They're all over the place. I can't say where I would go. I think I'm where I'm supposed to be right now. You know,
Mm.
one statistic you never hear about is Native Americans serve in the military at a higher per capita rate than any other minority, and there's reservations all over out here. So, I'm here to reach them too.
That
So,
is interesting because um, I'm I'm trying to recall because, like I said, I watch a lot of movies, a lot of documentaries. I think it was a movie or a documentary where I saw Native American was in the Pacific War and they was using the Native American language as a code so the Japanese wouldn't code break the American
that was
um
Wind Talkers is the movie you're
yes,
thinking of, and
yes.
absolutely true. But that was about the Navajo code talkers. Um,
Okay.
they work with the Marine Corps, but they used many different tribes.
Okay.
Many different tribes were code talkers in World War II, and it's a shame that they don't get more publicity, more recognition, more acknowledgement for their contributions.
Because
Because
I was astonished when I was watching it. I was really impressed. Like, I and you're right. They really should have. They really should have got more accommodated in that.
oh, absolutely.
That was very interesting. Now let me ask you this. Do you work with any current law enforcement out in Dakota with their with the job that you're currently doing?
Um, my operation works off of grants from the VA, so
Okay.
we're very specific in who we can service. Right
Okay.
now, we deal with veterans, active duty, and guard members,
Okay.
and of course, we cover the reservations out here. We're allowed to go there. We are currently working towards being able to offer these services to EMS, law enforcement, firefighters, all of those kinds of people, because
Okay. That's what I
moral
was,
injury isn't restricted to military service.
that's what I was going with the narrative of that. Now, when it comes to the military aspect of it, um, how are the cases? Like how bad do you hear some of these conversations? That's what's the word I'm looking for. Like how bad does it get? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, like a 10 or 9, sometimes a 12. Like
Well, that's one of the hard parts about moral injury is because it is such an individualized issue. We're all raised a certain way. You were raised different than I did. You have different values than I do. I saw different things. You've experienced different things. So, what keeps you up at night, I can sleep right through. So, it just varies from person to person. It's hard to find a starting point. So, you can't really say how bad that is,
hmm,
and with moral injury, maybe you did something that you didn't want to do. One story that I shared previously was, one of the tactics in Iraq was bomb vests. They would kidnap people, kids, women, strap a bomb vest to them, lock it on them, and make them go to our units. Well,
hmm.
you're just a theory, but you're standing guard duty, and here comes a 10-year-old running at you with a bomb vest on.
And next thing you know, you're meeting your maker. Either yeah,
Well,
that
you either let that kid in and he blows up all your buddies, or you have to do something about that kid, and you got a gun in your hand. So what you gonna do?
and so and that's the one topic I was trying not to get into, but we should get into it. Uh the whole concept of you have to kill a civilian situation, even though at times it's a sticky situation. That's the best word to explain it. Like it's a sticky situation.
It's it's one of those situations where you have to understand. I wasn't there at the time. I don't know what they saw. I don't know what they were thinking. They did what they did. Maybe they thought it was the right thing to do at the time. Just like all these police shootings. He had a gun. Well, no, he didn't. He had a cell phone. You've got a half a second to figure out what you're going to do and react. It's a life or death situation. And then you find out you made the wrong call. You got to live with that. Might have been the right. Maybe he did have a gun. Maybe it wasn't loaded. So many things you don't know, but you just have to go off of what you know right then, and you got to act or somebody's going to die. Another issue with moral injury is maybe you just witnessed something that just totally offended you, because moral injury deals with what you believe in, what you believe is right. Maybe you saw something, you could have stopped it, but you didn't. Maybe it's a betrayal. There's so many avenues to get to that position. It's just so many facets that you got to deal with, in this profession, I'll say.
So let me run one scenario for you. Let's say, now I'm not wishing this on anywhere or any school or anything. This is just a hypothetical scenario. Say you have school taken over, 6 suspects, 2 teams. You have to wait until negotiation ends before you enter, but you had multiple opportunities to enter. Does that affect the team, or does it affect mostly the person in command? Because a friend of mine wanted me to ask, because he's
in a situation like that, professionally, responsibility comes down on the scene commander.
okay.
They are responsible for making decisions, and they own those decisions, right or wrong. Now, as a team member, there's no way you couldn't feel a personal responsibility in that situation. You can always fall back on, I was following orders, but was it right or was it wrong? Who's the judge in that situation? And what's the outcome? That's kind of a rough scenario to deal with, but anybody looking at anything, that's, well, like when they say this senator needs to resign because they're supposed to be in charge of this program and it failed, so they got to resign. Well,
Right.
he wasn't the one turning the wrench and signing the papers and doing all the work, but he's responsible for that program. So if it fails, it's on him.
Okay. I see. So this is like a real. It's really real out here how this is really affecting our world, especially our vets. Now I'm starting to understand the ramifications of some of the stuff I've been reading online about why they commit suicide or why they do this or why they do that. And it comes down to, like you said, a split-second decision. So
if I could make a comment toward that, we all deal with our experiences, our decisions, what we saw, what we did, what we witnessed. But at the end of the day, we were over there, we were in a war.
right.
Once my brothers and sisters get back over here and they get back to real life, that's when the care gets critical, because a lot of us, we try to avoid, put it all behind us, forget about it, and it'll go away one day.
Command and override. I know that.
They quit talking about it. They just clam up about it, and it doesn't go away. And that's how they get down that path to get to where you're talking about them. So the biggest thing that we can do is engage with these people, talk to them, ask them how they're doing, because most of the time veterans in that situation feel like, well, like you're mid-20s or so, somewhere
30s,
around there.
30s. Yeah.
The way a veteran looks at it is, you never wore that uniform, you couldn't understand, so I'm not even going to bother. But then when you show up and start asking, you start talking to them, engaging with these people, anybody will feel like, well, hey, they're asking me how I'm doing, they're listening to me. So they might start to talk to you and open up a little bit, and that just allows that conversation to flow. And talking is one of the most therapeutic things we can do about these things, is just being able to vocalize your feelings and about what you're going through, what you experienced, And once you find out about that, then you can start finding other programs, other resources for them to access, because there's so many programs, there's so many organizations out there just like you that are trying to help, making that effort. And the hardest part, the biggest hurdle, is just getting them to those resources, because most veterans don't even know.
Um, that's interesting how you said that. Because this is a topic that really needs to be expressed more often. It's something that people just talk about one day and just forget about it. But yes, I am bringing it to the light, and I appreciate you for acknowledging that. Thank you so much. I have a few more questions. I'm not trying to take up most of your time tonight. I know it's a Friday night. So,
It's a 3-day weekend, bro. I got all the time you want.
yeah, it is a 3-day weekend, but I have to do other things tonight. Unfortunately.
Sure.
Now, my biggest question of the night is, and I'm trying to word this properly. If you could go back in time with the knowledge that you have now, would you feel like you would be an impact to your brothers and sisters, or it would be a negative impact to your brother?
Well, this particular field is relatively new in the psychological psychiatric world. They just started researching this maybe in the 90s. PTSD was first termed in 1980. So this area has been, we've known about it for centuries. It's even talked about in the Bible.
Right.
But nobody's ever put a term to it. Nobody's ever said, "Hey, we should do something about this." This is something we got to look at. So, knowing what I know now, if I could go back, in time, I'm not sure if I could change anything, because this is a conversation that you can talk about it. I can tell you, okay, we're going into combat, and don't forget your plates, and make sure you got plenty of water, and bring your ammo and extra pair of socks and all that, being ready for the experience. But again, like I talked about earlier, your experience, your life, your morals are different from mine. So how are you going to react? How is she going to react? How am I going to react? You don't know until after that action. So, it's they're starting to do some research into if it's possible to prepare or prevent moral injury. If there's some way to get ready because this is coming, kind of thing. But it's still very new. So they're still doing the studies. So I don't know if I could make a difference. If I could go back 30 years to the beginning of all this, that's a tough call.
Now, when it comes to the studies, what are they looking into to help with the vets? Like what type of therapeutic studies that you well give me an example, I want to say, of how would you help somebody. Let me have another example, because the one you sitting behind, that was very interesting, and I understand that. But I want some, like, I'm trying to understand this life a little more. So can you give me like another example of how this would affect a soldier coming home or something like that, if you don't mind?
Well, there's a lot of therapy theories out there. Cognitive behavior therapy, exposure therapy. There's a lot of ways they can attempt to treat this. And, with cognitive behavior therapy, what they try and make you do is you think about something you're going to do that triggers an emotional response. And then you consciously try to desensitize yourself to that association. So,
Wow.
if I light this, it makes me want a cigarette. So I will start lighting this and not have a cigarette. And eventually it disassociates that sound and that input with having a cigarette.
Okay.
So you change that behavior. There's a lot of different theories on what could be effective, and they're basing most of that theory on PTSD treatment. For a long time, the diagnosis of choice has been PTSD because you can diagnose PTSD. You can do an MRI of a brain and see the differences between my brain and your brain, just structurally. So if you can diagnose it, you can find ways to treat it. Where moral injury, it's hard to diagnose because it's different for you, it's different for me. So they're trying
So,
to use what they already know on something new.
so, this is a follow-up question. Would TBI consider a moral injury?
Negative. That's a you got blown up and it shook your brain around. Physical problem.
Okay. I'm just, like I said, I'm still
No,
learning.
you're
Still
fine.
learning.
You're fine. No problem.
Oh wow. Okay. So PTSD would be considered moral injury.
No, it's not. PTSD is a physical and a psychological reaction. So
Okay.
when you hear a bang, I believe it's the amygdala sends a signal to your hippocampus. The hippocampus tries to identify that input. Was it a bomb or was it a car door? And that triggers your adrenaline, and it's a physical response. Moral injury is, how do I feel about that? So, I saw a Humvee get blown up and there was 4 guys in it. I'm going to feel something about that experience.
Okay.
Make a little more sense?
Yes, sir. It does. Yes, sir. It does. It actually does. Uh, if you have anything to say to the viewers that are tuning in and going to watch this later, what advice would you give them when it regards to this topic at hand? If they have friends or family that are going through this,
Talk. Um, my generation, we were taught, rub some dirt on it, walk it off. You don't talk about your feelings, and unfortunately, that is the best therapy for this situation is talking. When
right?
you see somebody and something ain't right, and you say, "Hey, how you doing?" and they say, "All right," they ain't. They ain't all right. Now, I'm not saying hound them to death, but actually engage. Actually, hey man, you don't look all right. Is there something I can do? And one thing I would like to say before we wrap this up, you know, veterans know that we get support from like the VFW and the DAV and the VA and there's organizations out there, but there's a disconnect between the public and the military and veterans, and it kind of stems from Vietnam and the way they were treated when they come back. And when you got veterans dealing with moral injury, a lot of times there's a lot of guilt involved. There's a lot of shame involved because they know what they did and they're ashamed of what they did or what they didn't do, their experiences. They feel guilty, so they don't want that acknowledgement. But people like you doing what you're doing, we don't know that y'all are out there. So the more that people like me find out about people like you and what you're doing and why you're doing it can change a whole ass outlook, the whole perception. So the biggest thing that y'all can do is publicize what you do, talk about what you do, and engage with these veterans. Because once they understand that people do really care, there's a vested interest in their well-being, that makes a world of difference.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you stopping by. Um, thank you for your actual service, first and foremost. I know them years have been brutal, but you made it. Now you got the rest of your chillful years. I don't call them the golden years. I call them the cheerful years because you're gonna be chilling, having fun, doing what you want to do. And I thank you for sticking to this topic, and I thank you for doing your job right now and being a person that's looking out for the vets as well as me. I really do appreciate that. Even though I'm not licensed like you, I say, you know what I mean? I appreciate that.
You know,
Um,
it's the world's full of good people. We all want to help,
we
and
do. We
we
do. We
just got
really
to
do.
get
We really do.
together and make it happen. It was a pleasure to be here. I'm happy to answer those questions. And if you got some other questions or some follow up from your people, you know how to get in touch with me. I'd be more than glad to come back and talk some more.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You have a wonderful and blessed Friday. And I will catch you on the next time, sir.
Hey, good luck with your effort, and I do appreciate what you do. I'm
Thank you.
really impressed. I'm really impressed with it. So thank
you.
you, and good luck. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, that being said, we're going to finish up this conversation. I mean, it was interesting. He said what he had to say, and it makes me really open-minded to this possibility of how we can help our vets better, especially the ones that you be chilling with. Like, because y'all know I live in New York City, so it's more of the fact of I see the vets on the corners on 22nd Street, some be in the back alleys on 15th. It's crazy how we just brush them to the side and we don't sit there and take our time out. Like even the vet on Staten Island that's by my um sorry, by my Dollar General. Every other day I'll slide him like probably like a cold water, or I'll go to Wendy's. I'll get it if I got something extra from Wendy's or Checkers. I'll give it to him. Like it's more of we need to start helping out and giving back to people, and people don't realize that. People sit here and just walk over them, take it for granted, and especially in the city, like. I understand there are scammers out there. I understand there are people who bullshit, but bro, like if you actually see a vet, and you actually notice it, like take your time out, stop what you're doing. It's not gonna be a problem. It's just to ask him how his day is or did he eat. Not a lot of people have a soul, but if you do have a soul, be considerate, be kindful, be mindful. I mean, I have nothing more to say on the talking aspect part because we are about to be out of time. This was a short version of Stop the Cat podcast because I was supposed to have another guest come on, but unfortunately he's still in work, and I respect that. So we're going to end this right here. I appreciate everybody stopping in and showing love. Like I said, Mr. Dover, thank you for stepping in and showing love. Appreciate it. We're going to get up on out of here. I say la vie, mon ami. I mean, y'all have a wonderful and blessed night. I know it was a short stream. I know it was short, but as we got through to the main root of the conversation, to the main aspect of the conversation, to the whole shebang bang of it, point blank. Like he came in, he flew in on an F-22 and bombed this whole area up with the knowledge that he had, with the information that he had. Like I have nothing more to say, but tonight was an interesting night, and I appreciate that. We're gonna get up on out of here. I say catch y'all later. I'm gonna get up on out of here. Next Friday, Stop the Cap, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's gonna be changed from 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're gonna be at 8. Yes, Stop the Cap's gonna be at 8 each and every Friday. You know the vibes. Ain't nothing more to say. Exclamation Stop the Cap. Exclamation Mixie Lounge. All the good stuff. Say la vie, mon ami. Have a blessed and wonderful weekend.
DJ Fly High.
Hey, hey. I ain't not typical, atypical. You gotta watch your energy, cause we were reciprocal. Diamond so clear, sure they thought they was invisible. Bulletproof the vibe, butterflies when the money come to mind.
Money make me calm. It's the shit that make me up. Only money make me calm.